for you, what does a healing journey mean and what does an awakening mean? Because I know everyone has a different viewpoint on how it is. So what is yours?
Yes. I think this is a great question. And I think it's ever evolving too. So I think the answer will definitely evolve as get older and stuff. But for me at this moment, healing, I think, relates to like your internal world. So, like your past, your dreams, your limiting beliefs, your trauma, things of that nature. And then I think an awakening involves yourself within a broader picture. So,
Mm-hmm.
whether that be Earth, being a human, the universe, spirituality, it doesn't always have to include that, but I think most of the time it does. So, yeah, I think it involves a broader picture and then you within that picture.
Yeah, and I love that because I feel like part of an awakening too is also trying to understand or starting to see what part of your purpose is. And I feel like that's
Mhm.
really when part of my awakening started, is when I started to realize what my soul was really calling me to do and what I
Mhm.
needed to do to like make it reality. Like that was part of it because it almost feels like different parts of your body and your existence start to like shift, like at least that's what kind of
Mhm.
happened for me. And I feel like my healing journey is also like what you said, like looking at your past, yes, but starting to put together and understand why certain things are still presenting themselves as well,
Mhm.
and like
Mhm.
also the healing is something very inward. Yes, like how do I reconcile and come to terms with things within me and
Mhm.
make it so and keep moving forward, and working on triggers for me have been a big part of the healing journey, and those are the hardest parts for me for
Yeah.
sure. But I really feel like, yeah, for me the healing journey is addressing, facing, and reconciling and moving forward with everything in your life, like you said, trauma, whatever you've gone through, um inner lies that you tell yourself about yourself, and
The
awakening is,
narratives.
oh yes, oh, the narratives.
Yeah.
What is a narrative that you tell yourself that you feel like is not true, like that
Wow.
broken record that we all tell ourselves,
Yeah.
right? But because we're our worst critics, but what's one that you
Yeah.
tell yourself?
I think for me, I'm never good enough, like that's something that I have had a lot of people reflect back to me. It's like you don't give yourself enough credit.
Mm-hmm.
And through healing, I definitely know where that stems from, and it comes from childhood and all of that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I did want to just reflect back. You said to you, you focused on like purpose, or that's where your healing journey started.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that also awakening has a lot to do with that. Because I thought of that phase of the dark night of the soul, where you're kind of like searching for purpose in everything, like you maybe kind of lose the familiarity with everything around you. And it's kind of like society and norms and all of this stuff, that you carry throughout your life. And so once you start stepping outside of all of that is normal and you start questioning it, I think you also, the big part of that maybe phase is purpose. So I thought that was interesting that you saw it as like a big part of your healing. And I remember thinking of it as like an awakening, but obviously to me, they're both intertwined. Like they're both kind of similar phases. I think we just have different names for them.
Yeah, and like you just mentioned something too that I want to like hear more about. I want us to talk about it. You just mentioned something about the dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
Sounds really
Yeah.
ominous. Let's talk about it. What is that for
I
you?
Yeah, I think that it can feel like that, honestly, if we're being truthful. But I think it's a period in time. Sometimes maybe the awakening, it can look different for everyone, but an awakening can come from a place of curiosity where you start to get spark curiosity. And so it can be something playful that turns into a dark night of the soul, right? So you might be like, why am I a human?
Mhm.
What is earth? How am I on a floating
Getting
rock,
real
right?
existential.
Yeah,
I'm
like
getting real sweaty just thinking about
but,
it.
but I think like once you start seeing broader picture, then you
Mhm.
also at a granular level, you start to question society norms, right? Like,
Mhm.
yeah, why are there genders? Yeah, why are these maybe why is this path so normalized and just things like that, And I
Mhm.
think that's where the dark night of the soul comes from, is because all of the things that seemed so natural and normal to you, you start to question them. And so you may start not associating yourself with all of, even just like the friendships, the relationships that you had, because you realize that there's like more to them than you ever even like perceived, right? So it can really be a little bit dark because you're feeling isolated from the things that maybe made you feel normal. Maybe going out to party, let's say, which is really normalized for 20 something year olds, right? Like maybe it stops feeling good, which was the case for me. Drinking was no
Mhm.
longer fun. I kind of started to question, why do we do this? Why do we numb out constantly every weekend? And so then your go-to reliever or like relaxer is no longer relaxing you. So, again, that's
What
kind
do
of
you
like
do
you go
now?
back to, yeah, exactly. You're like, okay. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a little piece of what a dark night of the soul can be. And I think also that existential crisis that can happen, or that yearning for purpose, right? Beyond
Mhm.
society's like careers, because I think our souls yearn for a lot more than a title
Yeah,
and
a
an
lot more than
income.
the traditional.
Yeah, exactly.
No, and you know what else too, where it's like where you were saying that like things start to slowly disinterest you that used to, really be part of your life, or maybe people, things, friendships, opportunities will start to disappear. And I feel like
Hmm.
sometimes some people look at that as a negative, but I feel like when you're truly in the face of awakening, you have to be willing to lose everything that you knew, and that's terrifying. It's
Terrifying.
not easy, but sometimes life takes away what it feels like was also clouding you from getting to the next step of your life.
Hmm.
And that's a
Hmm.
hard one. It's not easy, right? And I know for myself, the first time I felt that was I ended up going to college because I felt like that was what everyone was doing and that's what I had to do. And I remember being there and just having that automatic feeling where I was like, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
And I remember comparing myself and being like, does that mean that I'm not intelligent enough, that I'm not driven enough? And it's like,
Mhm.
well, no, because my heart's purpose was to build community, to work with people, to help other people, to inspire people. And I knew with what I was doing and where I was at, that wasn't it. But it's
Yeah.
so easy to get stuck in that role of like, well, what do I have to do because society's doing it? And you don't really
Hmm.
realize it until you yourself start asking those questions and getting a little existential, you know,
Yeah.
as scary as it can be. But something else that you were talking about as well is that when you said the dark night of the soul, the first thing that came to mind was a part in my healing journey where I feel like I was really in rock bottom, like in the
Hmm.
darkest place possible. And when I think about those exact moments, I think about how, what are the words that I would say to describe that? Like in desperation that you can feel,
Hmm.
loneliness, apathy, deep depression,
Hmm.
unbreakable anxiety, every single day, panic attacks. Like it was just rock bottom, right? I would
Yeah.
say that that was like the darkest moment of my soul possible. But then as I'm looking back at it from a higher step, I'm just looking at it and being like, there was light that was there waiting for me. I needed
Mm.
to be like in that dark ass pit to understand and see things that I wasn't seeing when everything
Yeah.
was, you know, there is
Yeah.
so much purpose in the darkness. There's so much purpose in hitting rock bottom.
Yeah.
And it can be really hard to hang on to that purpose when you're there because I feel like it's a very trying and challenging on a personal, spiritual, mental, life level in every single way. And it feels like you can't get out of it. But it's kind of like if you just hang on a little bit longer and keep on working on it and making little steps and building the ladder, like you're eventually going to get there, right? But the dark side of things has such a big purpose.
Yeah. I agree. And I think that sometimes it feels like it's going to be forever, right? So
Mhm.
I think like remembering that. And I also say it with a lot of respect because I know my rock bottom could maybe look nothing like someone else's, right? Like I think
Mhm.
that um everyone's version of that dark night of the soul is going to be different, but for me personally it felt very similar to what you're saying. And to me on paper everything looked good on the
Yeah.
outside, right? You have I got my dream job, I had that, I had really good income. um, and no one could help me because from the outside looking in it was like, you're doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing, you're making your parents proud, you're you have a good job, you're climbing the corporate ladder. They didn't know what to help me with, while meanwhile, I felt like I was living that double life of going to work during the day, being a good worker, and then coming home and numbing the F out, right? Like feeling like I don't even know why I'm doing this. I'm living the same day every day. What am I supposed to do? And now, as I've been coaching clients and having clients, I think that I'm learning that there could be a lot of beliefs that are so deeply rooted that make
Mhm.
you feel like there's no way out, that this is it, this is success, and that it's really hard to see beyond that. So like you said, if anyone is finding themselves in that spot, follow the breadcrumbs, and they may be tiny, follow those little tiny sparks of joy that you do find within the dark night of the soul, and you start, like you said too, I love that, you start building your ladder, your way out.
Mhm.
But yeah, I definitely, even just thinking about it, I'm like, wow, I remember how stuck I felt in that moment, like those feelings, of like desperation of what, like, I know I need change, but I have no idea what it is.
And it's so hard to even get that personal energy or like that kick in your own butt to like start to climb out of it. It's just
Mm,
as easy to like stay there because it also becomes comfortable. It becomes comfortable to stay in the pain, even as much as you
mhm,
don't want to feel it. It is just as hard to start to like be like, no, I deserve better. I deserve better. I can do this. I can get out of it. And I feel like that has been half of the battle, you know? And what you
mhm,
said about one of your limiting beliefs being that you're not good enough, I feel like also for myself, I really struggled with that. And something that I truly did not recognize was part of my issue, I guess, or I don't know if I want to call it an issue, like my biggest limiting belief, right?
mhm,
Was that I actually didn't believe that I deserved anything. And I truly
mm,
didn't see that until I had a session with my life coach and we got to that and I said it out loud and I was like, oh, like something
oh,
clicked inside of
yeah.
me. And she asked me, she was like, well, why do you feel like you're not going to like live a normal life again, or why do you feel like when your business was doing well that it would just provoke so much anxiety and panic, why when your podcast started doing so well and all these things, like you started to like feel like the walking backwards. She's like, it's because you truthfully inside feel like you don't deserve it. Like, where does that come from? Why don't you deserve it? And I was like, you're right. I don't believe that I deserve it. And it's
Oh,
like, we don't give ourselves enough credit to own up to what we deserved, what we worked hard for, what all those moments in pain and trauma and fear and in the darkness of our own souls, how much we had to do to get out of it, that we've earned feeling better. I feel like a lot of times we look around and everyone is really struggling and in a dark place and in a hard place, and that we feel like we can't get out either. So it's like
mhm,
we have to know that we're doing the work. It's okay to get to a place where you feel like, what, I'm better, I'm doing better, I'm working hard, I'm healing, and own it. It's so easy to like not own it, but we have to give ourselves credit. Here today, we're sitting here recording a podcast, talking to each other, but also talking to the people that are going to listen to this and maybe they'll resonate with it too. And the fact that you and I can sit here and talk about it and have an open conversation, that in and of itself is a win. We have to give ourselves credit. We are
yeah.
good enough. And it is just so, I don't know, eye-opening to finally, like you said, be on your healing journey, on your awakening journey, however I guess it resonates for you. But to start to understand what are those big limiting beliefs that are really in your way, and they're not always obvious. Like I truthfully
Mm-mm.
did not think that I didn't think I deserved it. I really didn't until we had a conversation about it. I was like, dang, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I love like coaching, to be honest, because I realize we all have blind spots. We
Hmm.
all have blind spots, as much as we can self-analyze ourselves and like point out what we need to work on. And that's great. I don't think
Hmm.
everyone needs to work with someone right away, but I think, and I think there's a lot of merit, right, in like healing yourself as well. So I think that
Yeah.
that's a beautiful thing. But there comes points where we just maybe don't see what's next, like we're not sure and we can't figure it out for ourselves, or we think we're doing great, right? But
Mm.
we're self-sabotaging, and it's kind of like,
Mm.
it's just me again, I'll get through it. And then you sit with someone, you have a session, and you're like, wow, I didn't see that for myself. That was so deeply rooted that it was a blind spot for me, and I needed someone to come and like point it out for me. And cool, now I can work on it because it's like come to the light.
Yeah.
Um, but also, I wanted to say real quick is sometimes I remember in my dark night of the soul, I was self isolating for sure. I felt like no one understood. And I think to some
Mhm.
extent, in terms of family, it was true,
Mhm. Yeah.
and I think like the first gen experience and going through an awakening or a healing journey takes a lot of courage,
Mhm.
because it's likely that you're not understood in what you're going through and
Mm.
what's happening. Especially if you've reached a certain level of, I think, like success, or just if on paper or from the outside looking in, your life looks okay, you have food on the table, a place to live, right? Those are the basics that sometimes family can focus on. But as a first gen, I think we're getting to live a life that goes a little bit beyond that, or just needing a little bit different.
Mhm.
But if you're not in the mood to socialize, I would just say find an online community,
Yeah.
because I think that it's okay if you don't feel like socializing in person. Maybe, at least I know I didn't,
Mm.
but I started to follow people that I resonated with. And I felt like there was some community in that. I knew that every, let's say, Friday, there was going to be a podcast that I was going to listen to, and that I was going to feed me positive information, and that I was going to resonate with. And so that can be a form of community. Sometimes community doesn't have to look like a group of people talking about what they're going through. Although when you're ready, I think that's a beautiful thing too, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I just wanted to point that out, or put that out there, because my community first started with online people that I resonated with. I didn't even have to talk to them on a regular basis. It was more so voices that got me through those periods.
Yeah, that can be that guiding voice that it's gonna help you see stuff differently or a little bit better, because we're when we're in the dark place, I think it's really easy to just not have any positive thoughts, like not have
Mm-hmm.
anything at all. And I think that we underestimate the power of starting to make changes in what we put outside of ourselves, like what we ingest, like whether that be podcasts, music, YouTube, TV, whatever that is. As long as you start to make a positive change slowly, I think that can really real quick, did you see that little fly?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "A freaking fly." I noticed it too, and I was like, "Don't tell me I'm gonna be saying something important, and then it's gonna like come across."
And I had to swallow, and I was like, hold it in, Priscilla.
Oh my gosh. People underestimate the power of just putting just one more positive thing in your life into your day, even if it's a podcast or a video that hypes you up, like that can dramatically change your day, especially if you're in the dark side of your soul right now, because that could be like that 5% of positivity that you needed to just feel a little bit better, so it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, just give it a try. And I love that you were talking about how healing communities online can also be beneficial, because you and I might have something happening soon, you know
Stay
like
tuned.
stay tuned, we're kind of working on something like that. So if you're somebody that might want to participate in an online healing group or meditation group, art group, whatever, we're working on it, right?
Yeah.
We're not sure, but stay tuned. But yes, I myself also felt like online healing communities was my saving grace. I was doing those women healing groups with my life coach, and I really felt like having that hour and a half to just dedicate to my own personal growth and connect with other women that were also on their healing journeys was so powerful, because it was that hour to be like, no matter what is happening the rest of the day, the rest of the week, this hour is just for me, and there's so much
Mm-hmm.
power into just taking that back, taking it away from all those intrusive thoughts, from the catastrophizing, from the fears, from the negativity. It's like, start to take it back minute by minute, hour by hour, like, and it'll slowly get there. It all just starts with that one little step. So yes, I love what you're saying.
Yeah. And vocalizing, right? Because sometimes, especially like when we're isolating, or we're trying to get through it, but just don't know how, like when you start to vocalize or just like externalize what's up here somewhere else, it helps,
Mm-hmm.
it releases, it gives you like that, like weight off your shoulders, because you might be holding it all, I think too, like as first gens, usually we're financially independent or trying to be, and so we can't just quit our jobs and get through this moment and then go back to work. We have to stick it out, and so I think that, yeah, externalizing it in some way, whether it's journaling or like trying meditation or, something that lets you take those thoughts out. And again, sometimes you may not feel comfortable enough sharing it with others, but sometimes you will. Wherever you're at in your journey, just make sure that there's steps in place or something that you're allowing yourself to like let that out and release. Otherwise, you're also just kind of like holding it all together, and that can be really hard too, especially in those moments.
Yeah, and like holding everything in is only going to continue to perpetuate the energy that you are holding inside of you that's like nervous, stuck, confused, stressed, fearful. And I know for myself, there was an exercise that I did where I like punched the crap out of a punching bag. And I'm not a violent person. Like I'm really not, like genuinely, I'm not a violent person. And what was really like funny? It's not funny, but what's funny about it, I guess, is that ever since I was a kid, I always like wanted to do boxing or wanted to do martial arts, like wanted to do something that was like on contact fighting, but I'm very much like a lover, not a fighter. Like I do not like confrontation. I don't like fighting with people, but I felt like, well, if it's a sport, then I can do it, But what I started to realize like over the years as I got older, and even as of last year, when I was really in that dark night of my soul and on my healing journey, was that I was hitting the punching bag and I started feeling myself getting like overwhelmed, right? But with emotion, not with like physical discomfort. I was emotionally getting overwhelmed. And then I stopped myself and I was like, whoa, Yasmin, that's not who you are. And then I realized, wait, but like, what's telling me that I'm not this angry person, that I'm not this? That was myself being afraid of feeling anger. That was myself still holding myself back from feeling my feelings, because I have essentially what perpetuates my anxiety is that I struggle with like feeling the full feeling of anything, right? And I started to realize, well, okay, well, what happens if I keep on hitting this punching bag like this and I allow the anger to come out and I allow it all to completely consume me? What is really going to happen? Like, what is the deep fear there? And once I let it out, and I did a bunch of other things, which can be a whole podcast in of itself, but I'm just going to premise it as general as I can. I ended up crying for 4 hours. 4 hours of facing what was inside of me, the anger that I had towards whatever has happened to me in my life. I ended up doing that for 4 hours and crying a cry that I don't even know where that came from, like truthfully. And that was activated through me just punching a bag and allowing myself to let it happen finally, and not listen to that voice in my head that was telling me, but that's not you, that's not you, that's not you, because those voices in our heads are also a recollection of everyone else outside of us that say, this is wrong, this is not okay, this isn't you, this isn't that, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes you just have to block it out and say, if my body is telling me that it's time to face whatever this is, maybe there's a lesson in it, or maybe there's something that I really need. Because after I really felt that for those 4 or 5 hours, I feel like that was also a huge like milestone in my healing journey, because that showed me that I am able to face it. It is time to start to unpack it and let it out. But I was holding in like a 5-hour deep from my soul, quivering, moving cry. Some of us are, and we're afraid to let it out because we don't know what will happen if we do, But that was, wow, that was like a big turn of events for me, for sure, when I let it out.
How powerful, right? That first you recognized it like coming up, you caught yourself. And I think that takes some self-awareness, which you learn throughout your like healing and awakening journey. So you got that like urge, and then you were going to suppress it. And then you're like, nope, let's let it out. Let's let it out. So, wow, that's amazing. I'm so glad that you had that opportunity, because we can go. And this is one of the reasons why I choose to speak out as a first gen about healing and awakening, because I think that we could go our whole lives suppressing our emotions. And what can happen is we're just going to find new and different ways to numb them out. That's what I recognize is a lot of people live their lives numbing their true feelings, their true
Mhm.
dreams, their true fears, right? Like they
Mhm.
just like they feel it, and then they're like, no,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. So whether it
Mhm.
be another relationship, whether it be alcohol, drugs, whatever it may be, right? Whatever the place to go to where it's like this is going to help me numb it out, we can stay there for years and years to come. And so I have so much respect for anyone that's going through healing and awakening. I think it's a beautiful journey to be on, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a courageous path, man. It is not for the no, I don't want to say that. There's so much power and weakness. That's not what I wanted to say. You get what I
Yeah.
mean, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just kind of
Yes.
like it is not a path. I think it's for the lighthearted, right? Is that the phrase?
Hmm.
I'm not sure. I think y'all get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Being on your healing journey and
For the
facing
faint
your
of heart,
truth. Yes,
something
for the
like that.
faint of heart. Yeah, it's something whoever's listening, y'all get what we're trying to
Yeah.
say. Being on that healing journey and finally facing your traumas, facing your fears, healing generational trauma, moving forward, dismantling those limiting beliefs that you have for yourself and building the life that you want, baby step, baby step, baby step, but it's going to get you there. And it might not be easy. It's not easy, right? We got to pick up a bunch of bricks and like carry it on our back. Like it's not easy, you know? I
It's
don't
not
think,
easy.
yeah, no one's going to tell you it's easy. Like it's not. We're in the middle of it and we all are, and it's okay, but you can do it. Like you are
Yeah.
already a badass for even just being here and trying to move forward, listening to this, working on yourself. Like you don't realize, like you said, there's so many people that live their lives every single day still suppressing everything, and and it's not their time, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not their time, and we have to let people get to where they are on their time. I know I myself can't be rushed on everything. It's taken me years, took me years to process that situation that we spoke about, so it's
Yeah.
all in our own timing. So wherever you're at, it's okay to be there. Just
Hmm.
take your baby steps, you're gonna get there.
Yes, 100%. And I was gonna say two things. So one, I don't know if this resonates with you, but you can let me know. The suppressing of feelings. I think that, well, I'm the eldest in my family, and I'm also
Mhm.
first gen, and so I think those two factors, and I'm sure like there's other parallel ways of experiencing this, but it required that I be responsible all of the time. And that meant not having big feelings, it meant not expressing my big emotions. And a lot of my childhood was spent at my parents' jobs, like whether it was their second job or my mom, she's a teacher.
Mhm.
So I would be in her classrooms. And so I didn't get to express myself as a child, whether I was
Mhm.
angry, happy, sad, bored. It was like everything had to be like funneled through the lens of inconvenience. Like, are you going to inconvenience your parents? Then you can't express it, right?
Mhm.
And just really wanting to be there, like responsible, so that I wasn't like this needy child, would say, for my parents. And so I think that that plays a big part in why I suppressed for so long, and why
Mhm.
it's such a big part of my adulthood. And I understand that some people don't understand that too. Like they're like, why are you spending so much time on your healing journey? Just live your life, right? Some
Mhm.
people don't understand that maybe you didn't get to live your life the way that they did when they were growing up.
Yeah.
And so you need a longer time to go through this. And that's okay. Your
Yeah.
journey doesn't have to look like everyone else's.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and the second thing I was gonna say is I think Encanto did the movie Encanto from Disney. Um,
Right up my alley, girl. You're right up my alley. Yeah.
it did
Okay. Yeah.
such
Go
a
for it. I'm ready.
beautiful job. It did such a beautiful job of portraying what healing can look like in this family unit that's not ready to heal.
Mhm.
You truly are the one seeing the cracks in the house,
Mhm.
and that may make you feel like you're the crazy one, right? Like you're the
Yeah.
one
The
that's doing
outcast.
something bad. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like mejor cállate is the
Yeah.
message you might get from others. And
Yeah.
it's not going to be that straightforward. It's going to be like, oh, you're weird, or ay exagerada. There may be many
Mhm.
ways of receiving that message of not in this house,
Mhm.
or we don't talk about that, right? We don't
Yeah.
talk
We
about
don't talk about
Bruno.
Bruno. Yeah. Literally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but so,
Yeah.
and I mean,
We can do a whole podcast about Encanto. Yeah. There is so much to
Encanto,
unpack
yeah.
there. Yeah. I'm
Such a
obsessed.
beautifully done movie, yeah. And I think it just resonated so much with what I felt like happened in in my journey, right? I feel like I was like speaking out on things that I thought were wrong, and everyone else was like, they're not that wrong. It's just you're just sensitive. You're just and now thankfully, like our family as a unit is in such a different level, and the communication is so different, but we had to go through those ugly, like mismatched moments to get
Mhm.
to a better position, you know? So just throwing that out there for those of you that are healing in close family units, because I
Yeah.
know that you know, our yeah, our I don't know. I just know that our families can be like that. It can be hard to heal in a family
Yeah.
unit.
It basically like adds a whole other level, because at least for myself as well, like my family has been so supportive and wanting to help me and be there for me throughout this healing journey.
Mm.
And I'm beyond blessed for that, right? But at the same time, it also is hard sometimes because I want to help them understand, but then I myself might not know what I'm going through, So, like you said,
Mm.
there's also like that challenge between wanting them to know that you appreciate it, but then also trying to tell them, but I don't know what I'm going through, I
Mm,
myself
yeah,
am trying to figure it out, And I just
yeah.
love what you said about Encanto, not just because I love Encanto, but also just one more thing about Encanto is that the whole house had to completely be destroyed. And from the
Wow.
ruins is what arose the beauty that needed to be, which was acceptance for everyone's differences, acceptance for everyone's true light, being yourself, not hiding in the shadows, no more shame, no more lying in the family, breaking generational curses, all of that. But that only happened once the house was completely destroyed. And I think
Wow.
that you can sit in front of a destroyed house and wonder what the hell you're going to do, right? And when you're sitting in front of those ruins of your life completely destroyed, it's easy to just be stuck in what am I going to do now? Right. In that desperation and the fear and the pain. But if we could only see that what might come next is even better than we could ever imagined, and that's what we actually needed, it can be a beautiful thing, because I think that I also went through that with my family, is us finally facing everything that we needed to face as a family. It might have felt painful and like it was a breaking, or like there was a no, desrumbó todo, like it just completely fell apart, but it needed to then see what was left, which is true love and support and wanting to be there. So it's kind of like it just needs to happen sometimes, and it's okay to fall apart, if you
Yeah.
feel like you're falling apart because you cannot hold it in any longer, that's a message, because it's time to start letting it go. You can't hold it in,
Yes.
and there is a time when your body, your mind, your nervous system, everything is going to tell you it is time to face everything that you have been trying to avoid and not face. And I know that was something that hit me for sure, where I was like, oh
Mm.
crap, it is time. I was like, oh, I can't do it anymore. There comes a
Yeah.
time where you just can't do it. And it all happens for a reason. For
Yeah.
everyone, it happens at a different time, at a different place, for a different reason. But I feel like a lot of people that are listening to this, that are on both of our channels, are people that really resonate and that are at a similar place, that feel like it is time to heal and it's time to start to have a relationship with yourself that you've never had before. You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Wow, that was so beautifully put, everything you just said. And I think it applies for a family and for an individual, right? Like if
Mhm.
you are looking at yourself as like I'm losing everything that I was and everything that I thought I should be,
Mhm.
and you're looking at that with so much fear of like, but and what could be better than that, you know, because I had put so much into that, whether it's time, finances, dreams, whatever it may be. um just know, like you said, you know, that there could be something very beautiful to come out of that, but it's going to take time. It's a process. It's breadcrumbs. It's like little by little. And just
Mhm.
very quick, because I know first gens, you know, at least, you know, we attract like first gen audience. Or I know on my channel, like, you know, I attract the first gen audience. I just want to say, if you should take care of you first and not worry about
Mhm.
your family coming along for the ride.
Yeah.
If you have a super supportive family, like you mentioned, you have amazing, beautiful, you know, then I think it's a little bit different, and you'll manage, like, as you know. But I know my experience was a little bit different. I don't feel like they were on board with whatever was happening. And so it took me saying I'm okay with them being on their journey and me being on mine. And
Mhm.
thankfully, rounded out beautifully, and it like the way it all worked, like you said, it kind of like the ruins brought out the true essence of a family, which is love. I
Hmm.
feel like we ended there.
Yeah.
um but it didn't look that way. It wasn't like, come on
Hmm.
family, let's do this, right? It
Yeah.
really felt like, whew, it was a lot of like
Hmm.
conflict, and there was things that had to come out, right? Whether it was
Yeah.
like, sometimes it looks like resentment, sometimes it looks like guilt,
Hmm.
shame, different things. And just know that every journey is different, and just hold on to as much as you can and let go of what you can't. A lot of first gens carry other people's problems, whether it's our
Yeah.
parents or our siblings. We want to do right by them, and that's love and that's beautiful. But
Hmm.
if we are crumbling inside and we can't do it anymore, then what good does that do for the others?
Yeah.
We need to let it go for a little bit, and that's okay. And we can pick it back up when we feel ready to. But
Mm-hmm.
first, pick yourself back up, because that's most important, I think.
No, it is because you cannot be there for your family, for your loved ones if you yourself are completely broken. I think there's only up to a certain point that you can do it until you really just lose yourself in everything you're doing. And it's so
Mm-hmm.
important what you said, where it's like you can love and try to care for and pick up all the burdens of everyone that you love in your family. But if you yourself are slowly crumbling, like what do you do? So it is a huge balance, or it's a huge decision to even just say, you know what, I am going to pull myself out of the ruins and I am going to be who I am meant to be and learn and grow and heal, whether or not they're there waiting for me or not. And that's a
Yeah.
really tough decision. That's why I say there's so much courage. If you're listening to this and you're in a similar place, like tell yourself and give yourself credit for the courage that
Hug.
you have. Yeah, yeah, give yourself a big old hug, because
Yeah.
that's not easy to take
Mm-hmm.
that courage and take it and be like, you know what, I have to do this for me. And it's time to
Mm-hmm.
set that boundary, and I have to do what I have to do, because you can't
Yeah.
keep living that way. It's just it's hard. But I
Yeah.
do want to say, if y'all enjoyed this podcast and you enjoyed listening to us, let us know, because we would love to do more topics and talk more, because I think we have a good flow. We can keep going.
We have
We
a
can
lot to talk about.
yeah, be like, we can keep going, y'all. So if you're listening and you like this, hit us up, let us know. Message myself and her as well, and we're gonna put all the socials on the description. So let us know if you liked it or what you'd want to hear. And yeah, we're so excited that you're here, and we are both here for your healing journey to
We're
be
proud
a
of
source
you.
of light. Yeah, and we're proud of you. Yeah, I'm proud of you too.